Chairs No Waiting, episode number 824, Barney Gets His Man. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out some of the great things they've got there. If you're planning on going on any of the Mayberry events this year, go over and check out the Mayberry Travel Guide by Randy Turner. Go up and pick yourself out a copy, and it'll give you all kinds of information about different places related to Mayberry that you might enjoy visiting. While you're over there, you might want to get a puzzle book. If you like our trivia we play and the puzzles, check out the Mayberry Puzzle Book Season 1. And don't forget to check out Becoming Thelma Lou, the autobiography of Betty Lynn. Head over to weaversdepartmentstore.com to check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer of tonight's episode 824, is Jan Newsome, Mrs. Weaver herself. Hello, everybody. I'm Allan Newsome, Jan's husband, and host of Two Chairs No Waiting. And it's great to be here in Mayberry with you. I love being able to spend time just talking about the Andy Griffith Show, gathering information for you that's hopefully something that you haven't heard, or maybe something you'll just enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy it. Tonight we're going to be talking about the episode Barney Gets His Man. Now that's the main focus. We've also got a voicemail we're going to hear, and going to talk about an actor who appears on this particular episode as well. And we got odd facts known by few, and we've got some trivia this week from Paul Mulick, by the way, that is all related to the topic of horses. Horses in Mayberry. So let's get this thing going. So the episode is Barney Gets His Man, and it is the 30th episode of season 1. Now it's both aired and filmed as the 30th episode of the Andy Griffith Show. Sometimes that's not the case. I've mentioned and explained that before, but if you're new, you might not know that. It was written by Ben Gershman and Leo Solomon and was directed by Bob Sweeney. Now, all this information I'm giving you, you can go and look at mayberry.info, and you'd be able to find this information. It's like a big Wikipedia thing that's all Andy Griffith Show. It's called the Mayberry Historical Society. That has all this information, and I just updated this particular episode, so I know it's all there. So let's go through the plot of this particular episode, and then we'll do more from there. But let me get us some background music, because I think we need that. Let's do this one. There we go. A little bit of background music just to make this a little more interesting with me talking. So if you're watching the video version of the show, you will be able to see some of the images of things related to this particular episode as we go through it. Okay, so the episode actually starts off with a car chase where they're chasing Eddie Brooke, through somewhere. It's obviously, if you actually see the episode, it's actually at Myers Lake. They're chasing him around Myers Lake. Franklin Canyon Reservoir is where he's actually being chased at, but we don't know that because that's not what's in the show. We just see a car chase going on, and he actually escapes the state police and gets away. Now, this is one of the first times we ever see a car chase. That's one of our odd facts known by a few on the Andy Griffith Show, and it's one of the rare cases you see a car chase. But this was the first time, I believe, that we saw one. So Brooke gets away and heads into the town of Mayberry to get some change of clothes, because he's a convict, right? So he shows up, and I don't know where he got money. I don't know how he did this, but he buys him a new suit and everything. He goes out and he's starting to get himself a cigarette, because in the day, people still smoked, guys. That was the way it was. But as he's doing that, he throws the pack of cigarettes. I guess it's empty at that time. He throws it on the ground. Well, Barney sees him, and Barney and Andy are walking down the sidewalk. Barney says, "You see that? Can you believe he did that?" So he heads over. "I'm going to go and do something about this." So Andy says, "Well, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee." So he goes inside while Barney goes over to talk to Brooke. And as he begins talking to him, he asks him, "Are you new here, fella?" All this kind of stuff. Well, he's like, "Yeah, I'm just on my way out." And he says, "You just threw that in the floor. That's littering," or on the ground, on the sidewalk. And basically, Brooke actually offers him $5 to just forget it. And could you just take this $5 and forget the whole idea? Well, Barney then's like, what are you're trying to bribe a police officer? So he didn't like that. So Brooke, as he's standing there talking to Barney, he sees the state police driving through town, and he realizes they're going to catch him. So he's trying to get Barney to let him go. And as he does, he kind of makes a move to the car, and he trips over Barney basically and falls to the ground. In the meantime, Barney's legs are all tangled up with him, and Barney ends up catching him. The state police jump out of their car. They go over there. They grab Brooke and throw him up against the car and tell everybody who he is. And the deputy just caught this man, because Andy comes out, what's going on? Along with the entire crowd, huge crowd of people in Mayberry. And the state police tell him about him being a criminal and that Barney just caught him. And wow, everybody's really proud of Barney. Thelma Lou comes over, make sure he's okay. But everybody's just so proud of Barney that he was able to catch him. Now, Brooke, he basically doesn't like it at all, obviously, because Barney just caught him, and he tells Barney, I'll get you, deputy. And then the state police throw him in the back of the car and take off. Well, Barney's still a little bit shook up about this, but he's got a whole crowd of people around him, and Andy's asking, how'd you do it, Barney? What'd you do? And he said, you've done enough work today. Why don't you just head on and take the day off? And he goes, well, you know, Andy, this is a deadly game, and I'm in it for keeps. And so he goes out and basically decides that, you know, there's some other beast might come down out of the hills, and you need Barney Fife to be able to catch him. And so he walks off into the sunset there. The next scene we see is in the courthouse where Andy's really going, how did you do it, Barney? What happened? And he goes through this whole conversation. Now, you guys probably have heard this and you'll remember it, but he starts telling Andy how he made his whole body a weapon. I made my whole body is that what you are, a weapon? Can be, he says. So he decides, you never know, who would have thought Mayberry, gateway to danger. Those are two great quotes by Barney. But he goes out to patrol the streets, and of course, as he walks along the street, he runs into the people of town, and they all know about him catching the crook, and and he just says, yeah, I made my whole body a weapon. And he just is really enjoying this. In the meantime, Opie comes in to the courthouse and starts talking to Andy, does a quick draw, shoots Andy with his cowboy gun. And he starts talking about how Barney was really brave, wasn't he, Pa, and everything when he caught this criminal. He said, don't you think he might have been afraid? Well, Andy begins to tell a story about when he was little, crossing a field where there's a big old bull. And Opie's quote here says, well, what'd you do? He said, I think about 60 miles an hour, or I would have got spurred by that, or got the horn of that bull in me. Well, Aunt Bee comes on by and she says, hey, we need to do something special for Barney because this was a big deal. So they decide they'll have a little party for Barney at their house, and just be an intimate little party with Thelma Lou and them. And Barney would come over, and they will have a little celebration for him doing such a brave thing. Well, they start to surprise Barney, but it isn't Barney that just drove up. It was actually the state police coming by to tell them that Brooke got out of the car when they stopped at a gas station. He went in to use the bathroom, climbed through a window, and got away. Well, Barney hears that whole story and finds out that the man got away. And that's when we recall the fact that Brooke said, I'll get you, deputy. So Barney, of course, remembers that, and he's afraid. So things go back to the courthouse. He's nervous. He's waiting there. Thelma Lou comes by and says, Barney, why don't you leave town? This is, I wish you would just leave. You'd be alive if you did that. And Barney's like, well, what kind of man would I be if I just ran away? And Andy's like, Barney's got this, Thelma Lou. And Thelma Lou's still concerned for Barney. And you can see Barney he's not 100% convinced that he can handle this or not. But Andy's reassuring to him. But then they get a phone call and find out Brooke is actually nearby, within 3 miles of town, because the state police dropped by as well and say, hey, he was spotted over at this location, and it's only 3 miles from here. So Andy said, well, maybe Thummaloo's right, Barney. Maybe you might want to leave town. Barney again, no, let's go. And so Andy gives him his rifle. Andy gets his pistol to wear. We see him wearing his pistol. And they drive out with the state police out to the area around this lake that they're going to go and check out to see if Brooke's there. They search all over the place. They're there looking everywhere. Well, Andy and Barney can't find anything. So eventually Andy says, I think I'm going to try to climb up this tree and see if I can see better from up there. So Andy climbs up the tree, and we see him. He's looking around all over this lake to see there. And we get a close-up on Andy sitting up in the tree, and then he kind of looks over to his left, and there's Barney right beside him in the tree. He was standing on the ground, but he was afraid to be down there by himself. At least that's what we're led to believe. And so he climbs up there because he's got 20/20 vision, and he thought he'd do a better job being up there with Andy. They come back down, and Andy, again, taking care of Barney. Andy kind of sees how Barney's kind of dragging a little bit. And so Andy's like, Barney, I would be all right with you if we just sat down for just a minute. I'm getting a little tired. And Barney said, oh, sure, take care of yourself. So basically, neither the state police, nor Andy and Barney have seen any sight of Brooke. So they decide they'll keep looking, and they're going to meet up over the old barn that's nearby. And so they do, and Andy goes in there with one of the state policemen and starts looking around, and as he's looking, he sees some hay fall from the loft. So he's pretty sure Brooke is in the loft. So he gets the state policeman and him to leave, and he sets it up so that Barney is going to go sit in there. Now, they do mention during the episode that luckily he's not armed. Talk about Brooke. So he doesn't have a weapon. They know he doesn't have a gun. So they leave Barney in there with a radio so he can call and tell them he's going to be the command post there to be the communications person. In the meantime, Andy goes outside and starts looking in through a crack in the wall so that he can see Brooke and Barney both. And he's watching them, and Barney's sitting there sticking chewing gum into his mouth. I don't know how many sticks he put in, but at least 3. And Brooke starts to climb down the ladder. Andy throws a rock to hit a can that's in there to make a noise, and Barney pulls out his gun and shoots the lantern that's in there. Brooks is raising his hand, going, don't shoot, I don't have a gun. Barney caught him again. He got him again. The state police come and get him, and Andy's like, Barney, what did you do? How did you do it, Barney? How did you do it? You're not going to say anything? And Barney just says, I swallowed my gum. So then they're back at the courthouse, and at the epilogue, Barney is trying to tell Andy how he caught this criminal, how he was, what he did, and Andy's ignoring him and leaves. Well, Barney goes in the back room, and Andy sneaks back in along with Thelma Lou, Aunt Bee, Opie, and the 2 state policemen that have been helping him. And they're all going to surprise Barney once again for him capturing Brooke. And so Barney comes out, they surprise him, and Barney's all excited and happy until he notices the state police, and he's like, no, tell me he didn't get away again. And they're like, oh, no, he didn't. So then they actually sing a song to Barney, and that is the end of the episode. So there you go, guys. That is the summary of that entire episode. Now, here's some odd facts that are known by few. Okay. This is one of the few episodes, as I kind of mentioned, where Andy is actually wearing his sidearm. We actually see him as he gets out of the car with the state police around. He has got on his sidearm. He's wearing his, and he's also carrying a rifle. So he's got on his pistol and his rifle. Let's see. This episode begins with a car chase, which is what I mentioned at the beginning. It's one of the few that has a car chase in it throughout the series. When he tries to bribe Barney, as I said, I mentioned as it was happening, he tries to give Barney $5. Well, and Barney's all upset about that. But he said it's just a fin. So if you didn't know, some people are young enough that they might not know that or not watched old movies, which is the only reason I know it. A fin is slang for $5. So he says it's only a fin. That's what he says. All right. So in a rare camera angle, which they almost never used on the show, they show Barney walking away from that crowd of people after he had captured him. So this is a really rare camera angle, and it was used on purpose to make Barney appear taller after he had captured Eddie Brooke for the first time. This is when he captured him. They shot this angle to give him that taller look. If you'll remember back when we talked about the episode Frankie Flint, when Ellie saves a female, they used a different angle, the opposite angle of this, where they were angled down at Barney, so it made Flint look bigger than Barney. So this was the opposite of that. Something I thought was pretty cool. There is a black lady in the group of people that after Barney captures Brooke. And this black lady is assumed to be a citizen of Mayberry, and she's seen standing right next to Andy just after Barney captures the dangerous criminal. The same lady can be seen standing by the squad car in the episode Barney's Replacement. We see her several times. If you watch different episodes, you'll see her. This may be, I'm not completely sure it is, but I believe this might be the first appearance of a black character on the streets of Mayberry, because there are black characters or background characters throughout the series. If you watch in the walking on the street and coming out of buildings and doing stuff, they're around. A lot of people have always said, hey, there's no way that you could have a community without seeing black people walking around. Well, you do see them there. There are black people there. I don't know if there's very many other races ever seen. I guess there's only a few, really. But anyway, this is just, I just wanted to mention that you see her, and you also see her in Barney's Replacement as well. Same lady. And if you watch, I bet you'll see her in others. All right. So at the end of the episode, when they're trying to celebrate with Barney after he captured him for the second time, Andy leads the group that is gathered in a singing, I guess, in unison. They sing, "What's the matter with Barney? He's all right." Okay, that's a parody, basically, or rewording of a 1910 song called "What's the Matter with Father?" Okay, it's What's the Matter with Father? So that's where that comes from. But I mean, I'm pretty sure I've heard that kind of thing. What's the matter with Barney? He's all right. So you could look it up. What's the matter with? I should have looked that up, I guess. So about 2 minutes and 22 seconds into the episode, it's right when when Barney's talking to Brooke and the state police drive up, they spot him. They kind of point and see him. Okay. So that's when this happens. If you look at the building in the background, you can barely see it, but it's right over the squad car. There's a sign there that reads Waverly Malt and Hops Corp. So it's Waverly Malt and Hops Corp. And so it's a business that sounds like beer. Okay. So that's unusual because Mayberry was a dry county. You're not supposed to really be able to see that sign, but if you take a freeze frame and blow it up and look close, you can. So that's just a little odd fact. Not about you, something for you to watch for. You can barely see it. I'm showing a picture of it currently. If you're watching the video version, you can see it, but it's got like a black oval, long oval. It's almost like a rectangular oval. It's pretty long, in other words, that actually says the malt and hops is where that says that. So that's anyway, something to be watching for. I thought you might enjoy. All right. In just a few seconds later, about 8 seconds later, when the patrol car passes in front of the drugstore, which I don't think I have screenshots for this, But as the patrol car passes in front of the drugstore, you'll see. Well, actually, I do. You can see a car there. About 5 seconds later, well, about 5 seconds before the picture I'm actually showing, they pass in front of the same building, and there's no car there. And now there is a car there. It's a white 1961 Ford that's sitting there. So that car just appears out of nowhere, basically. When they go past the building the first time, which I don't think I have a screenshot of that. I do not. But they go by it. So watch that. They go by the building, and then they go by again. That car will be sitting there, and it's not there the first time. It's just a little continuity error. So it's said that Brooks is in Thatcher's Woods. Now, as I mentioned, the woods he was in was Thatcher's Woods. Now, that's where they went looking for him when he got away the second time, I guess, after he escaped. And that basically, if you look at it, it's basically Myers Lake. It is, but they don't say that, because they call it Thatcher's Woods. So that is a lake. It's Franklin Canyon Reservoir. It's no doubt that's what it is, but they're calling it Thatcher's Woods in this case. In the episode, this episode is one of the earliest instances where we have Andy basically apprehending a criminal, but he allows Barney to take credit for it. In all real, Barney was the one who caught him the second time, but it was really Andy that set the whole thing up. However, Barney does deserve some recognition for his bravery in this episode. He was definitely afraid, but he faced his fears and did the best he could and did what was required of him. A similar theme appears in Barney and the Cave Rescue. That's in season 4, episode number 14, where Barney shows courage to get all the townspeople together and all that kind of stuff in that episode, but still relies on Andy really to make it seem like he achieved more than he actually did. So in this case, Andy helped him capture Brooke. In that case, he made it look like Barney saved him from the cave, even though Andy had already figured out how to get in and out of it. He had already done it. But Andy didn't want Barney to look bad. So that's a great, great friendship. I realize it's a TV show, but I think that's great. All right, so next up we got when Barney and Andy leave the barn. They leave that's at the end after Barney has swallowed his gum and everything. When they actually leave the barn after Barney caught the Brooke, I always call him Brooks, like with an S. It's actually Brooke, Brooke. Brooke. But when they leave, they actually, if you watch, they leave the radio, the big walkie-talkie thing, giant radio from MASH, and a rifle behind. They don't get it. All right, so the state police officers, they come to tell Andy and Barney that they have a lead where the convict, on the convict, and invite them to join them. When the officer opens the door to leave, this is earlier in the episode. I keep jumping back and forth. I should have put these in the right order, I suppose. But when they leave to try to get them to go and help them at the Thatcher's Woods, I guess it was, you can see out the window of the door, the scenery outside the door is wrinkled. That's what I was looking at. I do not have an image of that to be able to show, because evidently I didn't do a screenshot of that, or maybe I did. Let's see if it's in here. But if you look, and you can't see it in the screenshot I have, but the outside the door, it's wrinkled. Now you could probably, if you're watching the Blu-ray versions, you're really going to be able to see this. So something to watch for if you have the Blu-ray versions. All right. And finally, when Andy and Barney are looking for the escaped criminal in the woods, there's an artificial light that shines on them. Now this is, they have been looking, it's after they've been walking down through there and they decide they need to sit down. When Barney's telling him he wants to sit down, or Andy's saying he wants to sit down because he's tired. If you watch that scene, you will see a light, reflected light, move around on the scenery trying to get to the actors' faces. So you'll see that if you really watch. It's not terrible, and it's not going to just draw you out of the scene, but I noticed it when I watched it today while I had read this question. If I had not read that, I don't think I would have seen it. So that's some odd facts known by a few. I already did our quotes. I said, Andy's like, how'd you do it, Barney? How'd you nail him? Did he rush you? Well, say something. Well, what's the matter, Barney? And Barney's like, I swallowed my gum. Okay, so now here we go. This is next thing I wanted to tell you about real quickly is one of the characters, one of the two state policemen that helped take away the criminal. His name on the show is Sergeant Johnson, but he's played by an actor named Bob McQuain. Bob McQuain. He was the sergeant in this, and he was in a lot of episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. So I wanted to bring this up so you guys will be aware of it. There's a whole page on him on Mayberry.info if you go and check it out. So he is in multiple episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. Definitely something you'd want to check out. He's in 3 episodes in season 1 of the show, and 11 more episodes by the end of season 3. So while many of us always think of Allan Melvin as being probably the most, he was on the show the most times as a guest actor, it was really Bob McQuain that was on more, because he was on much more often than Allan Melvin. Allan Melvin is Sam the Butcher from the Brady Bunch. That's who he is. So anyway, Bob McQuain, great guy, great story. If you want to read about him, he was born in Elkin, West Virginia, back in 1934, and he passed away back in 1999 in late December 26th of 99. But great. He was had a lot of great scenes. I think you'd enjoy going and reading about him. I just wanted to mention that he played Sergeant Johnson in this particular episode. All right, so now let's move back to other things here. All right, so in the I guess I can stop our background music. Hold on. The last week during our live show. During the live show, I actually had comments that we were making talking about somebody had seen Otis on Perry Mason. Well, Perry Mason, I mentioned then that there was a lot of people on Perry Mason back then, and we got a voicemail about that. So let's hear from Keith.
Hey, Allan. This is Keith Underwood in Clinton, North Carolina. Just want to make a comment on last week's show. You mentioned something. You got to talking about the Perry Mason show for a little bit there on the podcast, and you mentioned how every show was the case of something, and I got to thinking later Perry Mason was actually mentioned on the Andy Griffith Show one time that I know of, season 6, episode 5, The Bazaar, when Warren arrested Aunt Bee and all her friends for gambling, and he would not drop the charges for nothing, no matter how hard Andy tried to get him to drop the charges, he wouldn't do it. So something come up about, I don't know how it came up, but Warren said that he had read all the Perry Mason stories. He had read every one of them, and Andy said, well, I think you missed one. And he said, the case of the pig-headed deputy who was killed by a berserk sheriff, and then he walks out and slams the door. So I just remembered that when you got to talk about it last week, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. Anyway, I'll go now, but I just want to thank you and Dan for what y'all do for all us Mayberians out here. So we appreciate it very much. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for taking time to call in about that. And I had forgotten about it. I was actually talking about last week about the episodes of the Andy Griffith Show having names. When I was talking about the Mayberry first years, talking about them having names, and mentioned that most people wouldn't even know that, but on Perry Mason, it would show that name at the beginning of every episode, the case of whatever. But the Andy Griffith Show never showed that. So that's where this all conversation came from. We talked about it in the live chat before the show started about Otis being on Perry Mason as well. So yeah, that's a known thing. Now, what I did mention, there were so many on there. So I went and looked it up. I went and found the actual answer. So here you go. The actual number of people that were on both the Andy Griffith Show and Perry Mason are 273. 273 actors appeared on both Andy Griffith Show and on Perry Mason. Now, both shows ran for a long time. Perry Mason is famous for having so many people having appeared on that show. And if you think about it, there were only really three main characters. You had Perry Mason, Paul Drake, and Perry's, I forgot, legal secretary. I forgot what she's called. Yeah, Bella's her name. But her name is, she's not a secretary. She's something else. She's a legal secretary or something like that. She's got a name for that. Anyway, those were the only three regular, and you had the prosecutor and the detectives, but there were so few on there. Della, I said that. Yeah. So Della was her name, but she was anyway, they had a lot of guest actors on that show. So there are tons of people that have been on Perry Mason, but there are 273 that were on both the Andy Griffith Show and Perry Mason. So hopefully that is fun for you. That kind of information. I love that kind of stuff. So hopefully you do as well. All right. So finally for this week, we're going to play some trivia. So I hope you guys are ready. So everybody pull out your pencil and paper so that we can play trivia. This week, Paul Mulick submitted trivia that's the topic is horses. Horses is the topic. So if you're ready, here we go. All right, so get your pencil and paper out. Question number 1. There's 6 questions, by the way. Question number 1. What does Opie call his imaginary horse? What does Opie call his imaginary horse? Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. All right, the answer. Okay, I'll give you a hint first because Paul gives a hint. The episode is Mr. McBeebe. Okay. What was Opie's imaginary horse's name? The name is Blackie. This is Blackie. Folks in our chat room are getting it right. Congratulations to the folks in the chat room. I see them in there. If you'd like to be a part of our chat room, guys, head over to live.twochairsnowaiting.com on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and join in with all the folks there. There's folks there. They're over on, they're at YouTube. They're on Facebook. They're all over the place. All right, so go and check it out. All right, so I'd love to have you. All right, next up, number 2. According to Barney, what will happen if you ride an old horse while wearing a ruby ring? I thought it'd be a white horse. A white horse. Barney, what will happen, according to Barney, what will happen if you ride a horse while wearing a ruby ring? What will happen if you ride an old horse wearing a ruby ring? All right, the episode in question is a hint, is Divorce Mountain Style. Pause if you don't hear the answer. The answer is the horse will go mad if you're wearing a ruby ring. Yeah, that's right. It's an old horse. White horse is a different thing. All right, so here we go. You got that one. All right, so there's 2. Did you get them? Number 3. Who said, "Food and water for my men and horses"? Who said that? All right, so there's no hint in this one because the hint would give away the answer. There's no hint about the episode. Who said, "Food and water for my men and horses"? Okay, no hints. The answer is Otis said that. Otis said it in the episode, The Rehabilitation of Otis. You can see why we didn't give you the hint. All right, so that was number 3. All right, number 4 is worth 2 points. 2 points. For 2 points. Who is seen riding up to the Mayberry courthouse on horseback? For 2 points. This one's a little harder. Also not giving you a hint on this one. All right. And then there's actually 2 people. 2 people. So you get 1 point for each person. Who is seen riding up to the Mayberry courthouse on horseback? On horseback. There's 2 people that ride up. I see folks in the chat room are starting to catch on to this one. All right. So it's worth 2 points. I can't give you the episode. Okay, so I'm going to give you one answer and then the other. One of the persons who rode up was Clarence Earp. Clarence Earp Dempsey. He rode up. And who was the other person? Fred Gibson. Those are the 2 men together. Now, it's a color episode. It's the episode called Wyatt Earp Rides Again. Wyatt Earp Rides Again. We thought that would be too big of a hint. So that was worth 2 points. 2 points. How did you get that one? That was a little tough. That one was tough. I don't think I'd known it. It was not Otis, by the way. And by the way, note, Barney did ride a horse in Mayberry, but he didn't ride up to the courthouse. He didn't come up to the courthouse. Okay. He rode past. Yeah, I'm not giving away the answers. I'm looking to make sure I'm not going to give away an answer. All right, so Barney did ride a horse, according to Paul, once in Mayberry, but he did not ride by the courthouse or to the courthouse. All right, number 5, also worth 2 points. Whew, these are tough, guys. These are all about horses. All right, 2 points. What Mayberry businessman uses a horse-drawn wagon? And what is the name of the company he works for? All right. What Mayberry businessman uses a horse-drawn wagon? And what was the name or is the name of the company that he works for? Paul, great job on these questions, by the way. I hope you guys are enjoying Paul's questions. If you are, write a note in there and tell him you like it. Okay. Send me a note about it at floyd@imayberry.com and I'll pass them along. All right. The hint for this one is the episode. This kind of helps give it away. The episode's title is Goodbye Dolly. Okay. And the answer is the businessman who uses a horse-drawn wagon. His name is Walt Simpson. Walt Simpson. And the name of the company for the other point is Dogwood Dairy Farms. Dogwood Dairy Farms. Yeah. So Paul's in our chat room and folks were saying milkman, but that was his profession, not the business name. Oh, so Paul's saying, no, that doesn't count. He was a milkman, but what was his name? Walt Simpson was his name. And Dogwood Dairy Farms was the business. Great job. That one was tough. All right. So to make you feel better, the last question is still worth just 1 point. Number 6, according to Andy, what famous American owned a horse named Nellie? According to Andy, what famous American owned a horse named Nellie? All right. This is from the episode. This will help you a lot. The hint. Andy Discovers America. Andy Discovers America. That's the hint. That's the episode name. According to Andy, what famous American owned a horse named Nellie? The answer is Paul Revere. Paul Revere. Okay. And as a note from Paul Revere's he actually rode a borrowed horse named Brown Beauty. He didn't ride Nellie. He rode a borrowed horse named Brown Beauty. Paul Mulick giving the education to us right here on Two Chairs No Waiting. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for those good questions, and I hope you guys all enjoyed them. I want to thank Paul for taking the time to put together these trivia questions. I think these are a lot of fun. I really enjoy them. It's not like I know them. I mean, you guys probably do just as good or better than I do. I do not do that well in trivia. I know how to look it up. So I think I covered everything I said I was going to do in this episode. I'm looking at my show notes to see if I skipped anything, but I think we got them if she don't jump. So folks, I want to thank you for being here. It is always fun to spend time talking about the Andy Griffith Show and playing some trivia and just enjoying reliving some of the fun that we've had with Andy, Barney, and the gang. So I would love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415 like Keith did. Or you can email me at floyd@imayberry.com or drop by over at twochairsnowaiting.com, and there's all the information about how to contact me right there. So if you forget, just head over there, and I would love to hear from you. Folks, I hope you're planning to go to some Mayberry event somewhere this year. And, wait, let me throw this on a skid. Let's start. I need the sound of a braking, of a car stopping. I don't think I have that. So I need to do this before we end. During this episode, I should have mentioned this because I thought it was pretty ironic that I had not really noticed it. But during this episode, Barney and Andy are walking through the woods. And when Barney walks on one side of a tree and Andy on the other, he says bread and butter. Now, I was like, I need to look up what that is. So you're getting a bonus here, guys. So just so happens that today I got the Andy Griffith Show Ambassador magazine in the mail. I got it. Well, guess what's in it? It's a whole story about A Way with Words Explains Bread and Butter by Randy Turner. That's right, guys. The answer to my question was on here. I'll give you just a real quick rundown, but if you want the full story, go and get a subscription to the Andy Griffith Show Ambassadors magazine. You go to mayberrybooks.com, and I think that all the information you can find out how to subscribe to this. It's a cool little magazine. But basically, it is a superstition that if you walked on one side of a pole and your friend walked on the opposite side of the pole around the pole, then you would get into a fight or argument. Or not a fight, but an argument. You would have a misunderstanding. There would be some issue, basically. So it's kind of like when you both say things at the same time, you go, jinx. It's that kind of thing. But when you walked on each side of the pole, you would say bread and butter, because that would stop that from happening. And one theory was that it would be because bread and butter are so tight together, once you spread the butter on the bread, that, you can't get them apart. So you're like bread and butter. Okay. Peanut butter and jelly would probably work too. I like that a lot. Anyway, I just thought it was a big coincidence. I did not plan it this way, even though I'm going to pretend I did, if anybody asks. But great job. This is the winter 2023-2024. What? That can't be right. I think maybe he forgot to do the right years. I think it's winter 2024-2025. Is what this should say on here, because it just came out, unless I just got an old issue. Is this an old one? No, I just got it. So I don't know. Maybe he's that far behind, but anyway, it's great. Doesn't matter when it is, because it's all evergreen. So go and check these out. Great stuff. And we also got this week, the Mayberry Minutes, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago or last week. This is the newsletter that's put out by the Mayberry chapter in Knoxville. Again, you can subscribe to that. I think I gave you all that information about how to subscribe last issue as well. But if I was trying to quickly see if I could spot that. Sorry, Dennis, I should have looked earlier to make sure I knew how you subscribe. But you can go to mayberrychapter.com and you can do that. But send an email to kingofmayberry@comcast.net. and ask him how you can subscribe. It's a yearly subscription cost, I think, of $20 to get the paper copy. Definitely worth it. 16 pages or more of written Mayberry fun. So, guys, that's it. Let's try to end the show one more time and get out of here. I would love to hear from all of you guys with all this fun information I've got all this kind of stuff. It's hard for me to remember it all, but hopefully I don't bore you, at least. You never know what you're going to get when you come in here, that's for sure. So, guys, I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call at 888-684-8415. Email me at floyd@imayberry.com. Head over to twochairsnowaiting.com. All that information's there. Guys, have a great Mayberry week. Get ready for Valentine's Day coming up if you're listening to this currently the week. So make sure you go out and get something for your Thelma Lou or Barney. Until next time, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you here.